Hello and welcome to the Womb Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Sama Morningstar and I have Karen here with me today. Thank you, Karen, for joining us. I'm meeting Karen for the first time. I was introduced to Karen through her daughter, who was a previous guest on my podcast, and I was so fascinated by the story that this guest shared about how she learned about her feminine womb-centered spirituality from her mother that I just had to talk with Karen. So thank you so much for joining us, Karen. I would love for you to share, introduce yourself a little bit more. And I was just struck at sort of the revolutionary approach that you took to mothering your children and teaching them about spirituality at a time when probably no other mothers in your community was doing that, and that you really forged a path on your own. And I'm very curious for you to share with me and our listeners here about that process, how you were starting to talk with me about your childhood and how you had big questions that were not being answered by the church, and I would love to hear the whole story.
Well, my family comes from the Christian background.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember as a little girl, 12, 13, 14, asking questions to my mother as sermons are going on, why? And she didn't have direct answers to give to me, but she said, because the Bible says so, the church says so, and you need to sit and listen. And you get your answers, and I'm like, but it still doesn't make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So as I grew older, I bounced around, different religions. I even became a Mormon. I was baptized as a Baptist, and even in the Mormon community, they you could mix and mingle, with race, and I always had questions about if we have a loving God, and they say to you that you're just like him, why is it that the people treat other people different? So as I got older, I explored on my own, and I knew from around age 13, 14, sometimes I would meditate, and it was a different experience. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what it meant, but I know it made me feel different and it made me feel better. Even though as I got older, I didn't explore that more, but I had all these questions and I didn't know where to go or what to do because I didn't have the root or the family background to guide me in that direction. Now, of course, back then there was no internet for me to, look and try and figure out what it is that I'm exploring. So once I left home around 18, I went to Texas, to school. I went as far away from home as I possibly can. And of course that there were more questions than answers then as well. But as I kicked around in life, getting lost, having issues, problems, I ended up in California. And I met this person, and they introduced me to Ifa, which is an arm of an African religion, and Yoruba's language. And it brought me a little closer, but still more questions. And as I began to have children, I noticed that too had a patriarchal view, and there were things that they said that women couldn't do, but when you press the men on it more, they would say no. It's just that this Odu is more feminine, and it's hard for women to press certain views or questions on this Odu. It just didn't make sense to me, but I knew that my kids needed some type of foundation. So I would say to them, as long as you honor where you come from, your ancestors and your parents, you should be okay. But I'm not going to forge on you any type of religion. That you have to find on your own. And I think part of the reason was that old adage that we have is you always want your children's lives to be better than yours, not just necessarily financially, but spiritually as well. Mm-hmm. So that's where that came from. And I think sometimes today that even though that was a good thing back then, it was also, I look at it as also a bad thing because I didn't have all the answers. Mm-hmm. So it's like I kind of threw them out to the wolves. You know, you got to find it yourself. But in a way, I'm glad that I did because they're not caught up in religion as religion is today, and how they don't have that where they have to turn away from it now. Like a lot of other people are turning away from religion standard, the way religion is today. A lot of people are leaving Christianity, Islam, and they're turning inward, and it's amazing. It's a good thing. So that's where my kids are starting from, and that's how they are trying to learn about themselves and how they should be.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I'm fascinated to hear more about, you said when you were 13 or 14, you started to meditate. And it sounded like that was something that you just sort of discovered on your own. Or did you read something about it? Or did you talk to somebody about it? How did you, and what did that look like when you said you started to meditate as a 13 or 14-year-old exploring and it made you feel better? What did that look like? What kind of meditation were you doing? How did you discover it?
I can recall one incident where I was upstairs in my bedroom, and my bedroom was in the attic, and it's a I think those are called Tudor houses where they have peaks. Mm-hmm. So my closets were on both sides, and it was always a quiet space for me to just go sit in the closet. And I would sit in the closet, and one day I said, I'm just going to be quiet, close my eyes, and sit my legs crossed. And I can remember just sitting there in the quietness, in the darkness, and feeling, I don't know if my body actually levitated, but I could see and feel me being in space and just being quiet until someone came home, and I felt like I dropped. Mm. But to this day, I don't know how I stumbled upon it, whether it was something just said to me, you need to be quiet and you need to be still. But I don't recall sitting and reading about it. But go ahead. As I got older and I went away to school, and I remember I enrolled in community college when I was in California, and that was one of the classes I had to take, meditation. Mm-hmm. And there were times when I had difficulty getting to my other classes, but I would always make that class. Mm-hmm. And the times that I didn't make it, it was unsettling because I looked forward to being quiet, to being still, even though I still didn't have the connection, the deep awareness of what it was and how I should maintain it, but I know how it made me feel. And I remember one day I went in class and the teacher was like, you missed the last two classes. We're having a test today. And what she wanted to do was to see if everybody made the connection, how to meditate, and how she tested it was she would pick up one of our limbs and see how heavy it was to see if we were actually in meditation. And she was surprised, and she was like, oh my God, is this something you do on a frequent basis? I'm like, no, I wish that I would do it more, but my life was just so crazy. But I ended up passing the class because she knew that I knew how to connect to myself as far as meditation is concerned.
Interesting test that she had.
Yeah, because if the limbs are limp, when you pick them up, that means there's no resistance, and you're in the space that you're supposed to be in.
Right. And I'm familiar with that as a massage therapist when people get on my table if
Mm-hmm.
I lift up an arm or a leg and they start helping me to lift it because
Mm-hmm.
they're thinking, they're anticipating what it is, or they're worried that they're going to be heavy for me, or whatever it is, that I
Mm-hmm.
know they're not really relaxed yet. So then I give them
Right.
breathing exercises and guide them to relax more. And so your teacher was kind of onto something,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that meditation could really, when you're really in it, it helps your whole body to be relaxed. And
Right.
so is that what you noticed from the get-go about how it made you feel?
I think in retrospect, yeah, it took me to a quiet, safe space. I mean, there was a lot of things going on around me around at age 13. And I think, and without having anybody to talk to and to really express how I was feeling, it was that feeling in that moment where there's quiet and you feel safe and you feel one with space, like, I don't know, deep, dark space.
And did you feel that oneness with space continue even when you weren't meditating? Like, did you
Only
carry
for a
that
little
with
bit.
you? Only for a
Only
little
for
bit.
a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
until I encountered a family member or until I encountered something that made me feel uncomfortable. So it's like I had everything that I needed, but I didn't understand it. And I didn't have a teacher or a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
So I had it reminds me of The Alchemist. You know, every time I sit and I think about it, I'm like, I had it all along and it was with me all along. I just didn't know or recognize it or how to embody it.
Mm-hmm. And yet you were doing those things despite not knowing how.
Mm-hmm.
Little bits at a time,
Mm-hmm.
you would have these moments of experiencing that, which, to be honest with you, is is no more frequent for folks that do have a teacher or a mentor. You know, oftentimes people can study and study and study with a mentor and never have that experience of oneness with
Mm-hmm.
the space that you had as a 13, 14-year-old. They can go an entire lifetime of devoted practice and still not experience that. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then here you were having that in your closet. Um, and so, I just want to commend you and encourage you that discovering these things on your own um, can sometimes be just as powerful as doing so with a mentor. And when we do discover and then we do find a mentor that can support us, then we can build and grow on those experiences as well. So then you talked about finding, was it IFA? Did I say that right?
Yes,
Uh-huh. And how do you spell that?
it's
IFA?
IFA.
Uh-huh. And
Yeah,
this is from Yoruba traditions,
right.
but you found them to be still somewhat
It's patriarchal.
patriarchal. Now, how did
Mm-hmm.
you learn about calling things patriarchal? How did you, I mean, so
Because
many, go ahead.
men, here I am at 18, 19. I think it was 1920 because I had my first daughter. And here I am on campus and I met the priest on campus. And I'm thinking, since this is from my culture, it's going to allow me to be who I am in a place that doesn't recognize me, which is America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But at the same time, underneath, deep down inside, you get that little tapping that says, mm-mm, but you're still going because you're thinking, okay, because it's from the continent, it's going to welcome me, and it's going to help me be where I'm supposed to be, do what I'm supposed to do. But as time goes on, I'm still feeling like it's not right for me. But I'm still going, because I'm still thinking that, it's okay. And I'm getting these readings, and then I don't see fruition as it should, but it's years and I'm still with it and I'm still going and I'm still thinking, and until later on in life, and I'm saying, this doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. So, I'm gonna do something else.
Was there a defining moment? Because I hear you talk about that little tapping inside saying, mm-mm, mm-mm, that inner knowing that
Mm-hmm.
seems to have been quite strong with you since you were a little girl, as a little girl, and which is not common with most people.
Mm-hmm.
We're taught not to listen to that very deliberately through the education system, through religion. We're taught not to listen to our inner voice. And yet it was
Mm-hmm.
strong enough in you that you didn't listen to those voices telling you not to listen to it, right?
Right.
And you could feel that that wasn't true. And so you listened to that voice that was prompting you to ask these questions and seek answers that felt more true to you, and ultimately not trust anything that didn't feel aligned with that inner knowing, which is phenomenal. I mean, most people get sort of brainwashed, if you will, out of listening to that inner knowing. And then there's systematic, the oppression of the feminine, the oppression of our menstruation, the oppression of our connection with our wombs. I feel that inner knowing comes from the womb, and that oppression really is good at making us disconnect from our womb space. And then here you are saying, this is patriarchal, even though it is your, more connected to your cultural background and your ancestry than anything else you've encountered. You're still feeling like, this is patriarchal. And I'm curious where you first came across that term patriarchal, because it's not something that's just taught in school. Did you take any courses in college where that was addressed, or how did you learn about that?
No, it's. I mean, I didn't started calling it patriarchal until later. But for me, it was like being oppressed by males, by
Yeah.
men, the way they think, and the man's way of doing things. So that was my understanding. But that's what I call it today, patriarchal. But um, I think I remember as a little girl around 3, and I was sent as a baby to live with my grandmother. I remember around that time I used to love to sleep. She would get up early in the morning and leave me in the bed, and she would come back after she gets dinner ready, gets the hot water ready to do her laundry of the day, and she would call me Ken. She would say, Ken, get out of the bed. You can't sleep the whole day away. You're supposed to get up early, do what you have to do, and then get back in the bed. I'm 2. I remember these things. There are things that made me feel comfort, laying next to her in the bed, sleeping, because I would dream, even though I don't remember all of my dreams, but I was in another space, another comfortable space. Um, and looking out the window when it would thunder and lightning outside, that would make me comfortable. Those things would make me comfortable. They're all weird. They're all different parts on the spectrum, but they're all different. So the dreaming and the meditation were the things that I can remember as a child that would give me comfort. But in 2015, I had a dream. Once I decided to let go, that IFA no longer worked for me, because I would have these readings and it would tell me to do the ebos, which are the sacrifices, which are whatever they may be, give my ancestors this, or um, you know, cook something, however big or small it may be. And still, when I would speak to the priest, I said, you just need patience. If you're doing the EVO that you need to do, how much patience do you need? A year, 2 years, 3 years? Why do the EVO now if I'm not going to get the blessings 3, 4, 5 years from now? Okay, it didn't make sense to me. And I remember all the priests, even though there were priestesses that I would speak to, they would always have the male do the ebo. And I'm saying, but why the man energy? I came to you. All this is in my head. I'm not asking the questions to the priest, but all this, I'm having all these questions. So in either 2014 or 2015, late 2014, early 2015, I had this dream. And my spirit said to me, it showed me some old tattered brown shoes. And in the shoes were my feet. But and Ifa, there's a opon tray that you use, and it's they use wood, that when wood is put through a grater, it has this sawdust, right? And the sawdust is like a yellow color. And my feet were in the boots and the shoes, and it had I forgot what that's called now. It slips my mind, but the sawdust was in the shoes and on my feet, and I could no longer tie the shoes. And there was a priest in the dream. It was a male, and he was dressed in white, and he was trying to get me to keep the shoes on. And I was saying, no, this no longer fits me.
Mm.
And I was allowed to put my feet in white square boxes. And Spirit said to me, you can fill these boxes with whatever you want.
Mm.
So to me, it meant whatever I had the ability and the power on my own to study and to become whatever I want. Even though that was at the time, my foundation, it no longer is. I can do whatever it is that I want that pleases me and puts me where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
So from 2015 to now, 4 years, I'm glad that I'm finally in a space where I feel like I'm in control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so the 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 practices that you shared with your children when you were raising them were from Ifa?
No, only the foundation where the bits and pieces that I took were having respect for your elders, um, uh, not only the elders that passed away, but the elders that you live with, even if you think that they are wrong, but you still have to have respect for them. But you must follow how you feel inside, because that's what's going to help you and guide you no matter what.
Mm. Wow.
So even though I didn't follow my feelings inside, I always told them, especially because they were girls. I had one boy, but the girls, because of the oppression of male and the way that males think in this world, in this society, they have to be in touch with who they are and follow their feelings, not what anybody else says. Because I always said to them, use me as an example of what not to be, of what not to become.
So you felt that even though you asked all these questions and didn't and sort of didn't adopt a lot of the spiritual practices that were fed to you throughout your childhood, that you still didn't have permission or the ability or the support to follow your inner guidance. Is that what I'm hearing
Exactly,
you say?
exactly. Because as a young female, I didn't have the okay. Then that's what, if that's what you're feeling, then that's what you should do. Because remember, I came from the old school.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by my grandmother. So you have to do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the mentality I was coming from. Even though my feelings and what I felt was so strong, I didn't have the validation.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, so how could I move forward and not,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Wow, so it sounds like you only ever received full permission to really follow your own inner guidance from yourself. like in all these different explorations, and you gave yourself that permission all along, because you said, you know what, I'm not really going to participate in the church as a young child. That doesn't feel right to me, even though I imagine no one really gave you permission for that, right? You gave that permission to yourself, and then you explored different things. You gave yourself permission to explore those different things, and you gave yourself permission to explore Ifa, and you gave yourself permission to say, you know what, this isn't really for me, and listen to your dreams, and take the pieces of each thing that felt right to you. So it sounds like you were giving yourself permission a little bit all along the way, but you were the only one giving you permission. And now again, you have that inner permission, with this dream, to really just go 100%. You really don't have to listen to any of those other voices that aren't validating you anymore, it sounds like. Even though, so were you kind of wondering all along if it was okay to do this, and now finally you're realizing it's okay, and or what?
Um, so that dream gave me the validation
Mm-hmm.
that I think I was looking for all along from a child perspective. I didn't have anyone to help me validate that that's what I should do and that's how I should move forward. So the dream gave it to me, but it wasn't like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. This is what you're gonna. This is how you're gonna do. I was still fumbling around as if I was still fumbling around in the dark, and it took certain experiences and in the meantime, Dia was still traveling all over the place, and um, a lot of the quietness as far as Buddhism and not from the male's perspective, but from the female's perspective, is what kind of settled my head a little bit.
Mm.
But mind you, as she was showing me these things and sharing these things with me, I was still all over the place because I still had questions, but yet she was in a different time zone. So it was frustrating. And I was still dealing with life issues and still dealing with, children and work and being stable and just going through a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until like the last year where I'm just feeling like, hey, I have the answers all right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I just need to do to move forward. And I think what's the most difficult thing about it now is um, it's a daily thing. It's like just like getting up and um, getting on with your day. It's being a part of your life, and and I have some resentments because if I'd had this as a child, I mean, I had it as a child, but if I had it the way that I have it now, I think it would be so much a part of me. Where it's my daily routine, just like everything else. You get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you get yourself ready for your day. The same thing that should have been in my day.
Mm-hmm.
That
And
routine.
what is that routine for you now?
I get up and I say some mantras and some prayers, and I listen to some mantras in the morning, and then I get on with my day. I go to work and I do what I have to do, and then um, at night when I come home, I say a couple. I take my shower, and then I go into Dia's set up like a mini shrine in our room, and I change the water, and I say my prayers, and if I ask for something, like I need some kind of guidance, I will get them in a dream. And sometimes they're riddles, sometimes they're plain as day, sometimes they're numbers, and then I go from there.
Mm-hmm. Can you share an example of guidance you've received from a dream that was either a riddle or plain as day that helped
Uh,
you figure out a practical thing in your life or a way to proceed?
let me see. What can I share? Okay, so um, a couple weeks before Dia decided she wanted to go to school in San Francisco to leave, um, she was just rattled because she didn't know where the funds were coming from and what was going to happen. And uh, I had a dream one morning that she was not here, and so we share the room, we share the bed, but she sleeps. She's up during the night doing what she has to do, and she sleeps during the day. And I sleep at night because our energies are so intense that she can't sleep, and sometimes I can't sleep. So we wake up with headaches. So we divide the time. So the dream, she was so frustrated and upset, and she wasn't sure if she was going to be able to go. So I had the dream that I was missing her, and she had already gone, and she already gone to California. And I shared that with her because it wasn't just a dream in my head, but I felt the whole sorrow, like, oh God, I miss her. She's there, she's gone. So, and I woke up and I told her, I think it was like on a Saturday morning, and I said, she was feeling really sad and upset. I said, I don't know why. I already had the dream you're going. So we just have to figure out how to get you there. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
she she already knew.
Right. And that's a powerful permission to really listen to your dreams and take it as knowing and guidance. You know, someone else might have had that dream and said, "Oh, that was just me anticipating missing my daughter if and when she goes." But you're taking it even farther to say, "This means you're already going.
Yeah.
This dream is telling us that you're going. It was strong enough in me that it's a knowing that you're going, and we're just going to put the pieces together as they arrive to and carry on with that knowing that you're
Mm-hmm.
going." So powerful dream work there.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded to me when I spoke with Dia that this was something that you shared with her and perhaps your other children too, is listening to your dreams. It sounds
Right.
like that's been a long-standing practice for you. When did you first? I mean, I think I remember you saying something about being a child and loving being a small child and loving being in the realm of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you start? Uh, receiving this deep knowing, these messages from your dreams, and letting them guide your life.
I think as far back as I can remember, um, some of my dreams I remember when I was 10. When I was little, I could remember, to me, it looked like TV, things were going on, but I can't really remember at 2 and 3 what it was, but I could remember loving to jump in the bed and go to sleep because that entertains me. It took me somewhere that I loved to be. And even today, I can fall asleep on the drop of a dime, anywhere, and I would accept whatever I see. But I would know sometimes it's not real, or it's entertainment, or it could be a message. Hey, you need to get up now and get out of this dream world and be in your real world.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember at 10, 5th grade, I used to have these dreams, and they used to frighten me, and I don't know why. But I used to be in this place, and I think I haven't had the dream in a long time. I may have had it once when I was in my 30s, but I'm in this place, and I think it's in Roman times, and I see columns, and I see myself running around the columns, but I see myself as a little girl. But everything, when you're little, everything just looks so big. And I feel energy there, but I can't tell because I can't see who, it's not in physical form. but it's such powerful energy, and it just vibrates so much that it scares me,
Mhm.
and then I wake up. But it doesn't feel bad, but it just, I know that it's something, and I don't know what it is, but I'm running around these huge columns, and the floor and the walls, and they're all like cloud whites, but they're huge columns, and I just feel the energy, and I'm just running around like a little girl, free spirited, just running around. But when I run into this energy and I feel it, I don't know what to make of it, but I wake myself up because it frightens me.
Mhm. And so, do you think perhaps that those dreams might have been some sort of ancestral or past life memory kind
It
of a
could
dream?
be, it could be, it could be. I don't know. When I gave birth to my son, I had blood work done. I was told that as far as blood ancestry, I do have some Mediterranean ancestry.
Hmm.
So maybe that has something to do with that. But anyway, I don't know what it really meant, and I only had that dream one more time, like in my 30s, and I still don't understand what it means, but
Hmm.
I haven't had it since.
Hmm. So some dreams are very clear what they mean. Other dreams are just as strong, just as intense of an experience, but you're not sure, and it's just sort of with you a question. It seems
Mhm.
like that's something you're really good at, is holding these questions that you don't have answers
Mhm.
for, and just having them there in your
Mhm.
life and
Mhm.
seeing what comes. Powerful. And so this practice with attending to ancestors, attending to dreams, it seems like those are some of the elements of what you passed on to your children as a foundation of, a few things that you felt really true about, that you
Mhm.
felt a big yes inside about, but that any kind of overall system or knowing about anything, you're just starting. I mean, it seems like this following your inner guidance really is ultimately what
It's
any
all you
spiritual,
need,
it's all you need. And
right?
that's what any spiritual mentorship or system or religion is pointing to, is supposed to be helping us to find that for ourselves. I mean, even in Christianity, that, there are many who say that that's what Jesus's whole message was about, is that we each can have our direct connection with the divine and follow our own divine energies. But the powers that be don't want us to have that connection and have that be intact, because people who are connected to that inner guidance are very difficult to get to do what you want them to do instead of what they want
Exactly.
to do. So
Exactly.
well, thank you so much, Karen, for joining me and for sharing your wisdom. And it's just a real joy to talk with you in this ordinary and yet so potent wisdom. It's so precious to me,
Mhm.
to share that together, because the more we can support each other with that, it doesn't have to be some big fancy thing. It's just this simple awareness that my inner guidance, your inner guidance, is all we really need. So I appreciate you coming on to share about your experience with finding that for
Yeah.
yourself.
I'm sorry for the interruption, but thank you.
No worries, no worries. All right, well, that's all for now, listeners. And if you want to learn more about what's going on in the womb-centered healing temple, this is one of the main focuses of listening to the womb space. I call that womb space, that deep feminine darkness, like you found in your closet, right? That oneness with
Mhm.
space that you found in your initial meditations. That's what we can find when we connect with our wombs. That's been my experience. And so listeners who are curious about connecting in that way, you can check out the Womb Centered Healing Temple by going to wombcenteredhealing.com, and we'll carry on this conversation and exploration. All right, that's all for now. Until next time.